Wait, before you skip ahead and continue, check the timestamps, playlists for other floor sets, check my merch store for Deep Dungeon apparel. Cue the intro. Hello, I am Angelus Demonus, with an updated Dawntrail live tutorial guide for Palace of the Dead solo on Machinist, if your goal is to get the Necromancer title. This live tutorial guide will cover floors 141 to 150. I will deep dive into every enemy on this set, showcasing their aggro types and what to look out for, and talk about the notable mentions on this set, such as demons and gargoyles. There will be a lot of deep dungeon tips scattered throughout this set, so be sure to check out the timestamps in the description below for anything specific. If you are looking for the other floor sets, be sure to check the playlist on the upper right card or in the description below. A difference between this guide and the previous ones I have done in Endwalker and Shadowbringers is that I have limited live chat interactions and kept the focus strictly on the deep dungeon content. This will play almost like a deep dungeon podcast with gameplay and a couple of viewer questions sprinkled in. I have learned from viewers of previous guides that they like to play along with the video up on another screen or monitor while they do their own run, and it's almost like I'm talking you through the run in real time. If you have any questions on anything that goes on with this run, things I may not have covered, or if you are confused on anything, be sure to leave them in the comments below and I will try to respond as soon as I can. My goal with these guides is to make the grueling challenge of the Necromancer title approachable and viable to all skill levels. No single question is silly, and every single experience is unique. Be sure to keep me posted on how your runs are going. Good luck, have fun, and I hope this guide helps you. 141 plus. I will say this is the start of when things start to become more difficult. You're going to see a little bit of a difficulty spike. The enemies you're running into is going to be a little bit more difficult. There's a couple things that are actually really tricky and really concerning that you want to watch out for. May also be, actually want to step outside for a bit explaining this, which is important because it actually reminds me, maybe where you actually start using sustaining potions if you've actually gotten through most of this set, not including the bosses, without any sustaining potions. We picked up 2 postures on this run, so we're going to collect them now. We have 138. So that's all the things that you want to worry about here. Now, a couple other things too. If you're not a free trial, you may want to consider using food if you haven't already. Now, the maximum eye level that you'd want to go for is 540. You can go for things higher than 540. It's just anything past 540, it's not going to give you any more stat. Now, the food is going to be beneficial, at least for the HP, but you could use like your typical raid food. If you're just sitting on raid food that's for Machinist, so on and so forth, just use that. I use direct hit and determination. Those are pretty good stats, just to kind of keep it very simple. Now, here, direct hit is good to have because you don't actually have initial direct hit in this content, so giving yourself direct hit via food will now give you like about a 2-3% direct hit, so it's not bad to have that. I think determination is also a pretty good stat when it comes to deep dungeon in particular. 3 other things that we want to, well, actually 2 other things you want to put down just in case it isn't already there and you haven't been using it yet. I haven't really talked about it in the previous floors only because it wasn't as necessary, but we're going to be using quite a lot of it from basically this floor climbing up. It is 1, leg grade. It gives a 40% heavy to the enemies you are fighting. Very, very useful for Machinist, and it's a 10-second duration, and a lot of things can be vulnerable to heavy. And second to that, it's Foot Graze, which does bind the target. Foot Graze I don't use very often, but there is a good amount of enemies that can be binded, and it's going to be a really nice emergency to have. So if they aren't on your hotbar already, then you do want to consider that to put it on there and to be ready to use it. I have them all 3 of them up here. Head Graze for the interrupt, leg Graze for the heavy, and blind and bind for the other one. So we got food, we got our CCs, and we got our potion. So let's start up here. What floor would I recommend eating food? I would say for the new time runner, you can probably start here. You can probably start on the previous floor too, but you can probably start here. Now, second to that, I mentioned that if you're not a free trial, you can use food. If you're a free trial, you don't have to worry about food. I've done clears before. We've had a lot of free trial Necromancers clear with either limited or no food, because the only way you're getting food on a free trial is by actually crafting it, because you don't have access to the market board. But definitely don't feel bad if you don't have food or you feel like you're at a massive disadvantage. You can just get whatever is available and just get like a little bit extra HP, but it's definitely not going to be the tilting factor in terms of clearing or not clearing. So something to note about that. That's important. Melds do nothing. Very great question. So if you look at the screen right here, Danny, you see the arm and armor. I can walk in here completely naked. It doesn't matter. Your gear is only representative of your arm and armor. That is a separate leveling system for this content. So we are at 98, 95. The cap is 99, 99. All you have to worry about is that arm and armor, and you get that from silver chests. We are on 141. Shall we begin, everybody? Let's do it. Alright, I will pop the food here. Alright. Opening Shank is pretty good. Depending on what we pull, I probably pop with a sustaining potion. Here, the Keds are going to be your easiest pull, but we'll do with the demons first. I'm going to open with a sprint, which is really good for a lot of kiting. This demon, you need to kill and be very attentive to. It will do an Enrage, which will do a Charybdis attack, which will basically dip your HP down to 1%. It will do 99% of your max HP, so it's basically a one-shot. You have to kill this in time. Machinists will not worry about killing this in time. Because of your normal DPS. The only reason that becomes a problem is if you had something else that you're fighting on top of the demon. So note on that one. That is a sight aggro. Ked is also sight aggro. One of the easier pulls, although it does do a range attack, sort of, like that. But it doesn't do too much damage, so it is one of your ideal pulls in here if you need to find something to kill. It just does that line AoE, which is easy enough to dodge, so on and so forth. Going back to the demon, basically what I use as an indicator that it's about to enrage is that it'll do 2 of the dark domes. The first one comes out very early, the second one comes out a little bit after, and when you see that second dark dome, about 10 seconds or so later, it'll then do its enrage. It is interruptible, but really you shouldn't really have to deal with it. Now I have the multiple strength. I'm going to use the overcap strength so we can kill a little bit faster here. There are 2 other enemies here that are definitely going to be worth mentioning, but we have not run into them yet, but we'll definitely pull them once we get the opportunity. Machinists can fart Gargoyle easy. They can. I mean, if you give it some attention, we'll definitely give a demonstration once we run into a Gargoyle. You definitely want to have a potion running for a Gargoyle if you were to fight it. And there's one right there. But first, Mimic first. How much harder is the 140 set compared to the 130 set? I would say, relatively speaking, Dank, much harder. This is definitely a set that kills a lot of people, especially on their first run. And the ones that is notorious for killing people is the Gargoyle. Actually, if I were to really specify the difficulty of this 4 set, really the only difficulty is like the first 3 or 4 floors where you have the demons on this set. After you're past the demons, I think most people will probably get to the boss, but the Gargoyles are the ones that are the most issue, so we're going to give it full respect here. It is a sight aggro. The thing that it does is that it gives you a poison, and it does double attack, and it's really the poison that's the biggest issue, because it kind of negates your potion, and that's why it deletes you really fast, because there's a lot of incoming damage on top of the dot hitting you. So we're going to pop a potion here, I'm going to open with a sprint, and then let's start here with Reassemble Drill, and let's keep our damage and keep our movement here. Once it catches up to me, it'll do that poison. With our full damage and strength on, it's not terrible, but there goes that poison. It is 20 seconds. And it's a pretty respectable. Look at the tick that I'm having. My sustaining potion does 1k, the poison does 600, 700. So if you're taking damage on top of that, it's almost like it's negating your sustaining potion. And again, Gargoyles are probably one of the #1 killers of people on this 4 set. After that, it's not that bad. But you do want to give it some respect. And we do have a Raising, which is fantastic. Actually, you know what we're going to do with the Raising, which is really good? I can demonstrate the demon really fast. So here with the demon, I'm going to keep it alive long enough so you kind of see the Charybdis. We did a 56-17 pull. I believe this Enrage should be maybe closer to maybe around like a 40-second mark or a 30-second mark. I'm going to get a little bit close to its HP just in case I cannot interrupt the ability, which I'm pretty sure I can. So again, we're demonstrating here that Enrage that it has and how long it'll take. That's the second Dark Dome, so that's kind of your indicator that it's going to be coming in soon. So this will be roughly a 30 seconds right now. And 30 seconds here. There it is. If that goes off, that is basically a one-shot. It's 99%. Now, it doesn't kill you if at full HP. However, I think its very next move after the Charybdis is a Dark Dome range attack. So it is kind of a wombo combo in that sense. So it's just one thing, just don't deal with it. kill it in time, you're good to go. Of course, if you run into issues like a luring trap, a toad trap while fighting it, your best course of action is to witching, so that you can slow it down. Anytime you witching something, if you don't know this, is that it does reset the timer. It's almost like you just pulled the enemy when it comes out of witching. It will not continue its enrage timer, it'll reset the rage timer. Now, the only thing we haven't seen yet is the Manticore Patrol, which will do a gap closer into you. They are sight aggro. They're open with a gap closer, and then they will attack boost themselves, but it's not as threatening as, say, their Heaven on High version. The Heaven on High version can delete you. The ones here, not so much. They're pretty good. They're pretty respectable. Definitely one of the pulls that, like, they're walking around, just handle them, because... because... you know, you don't want to get snuck up on them, basically. Ked, Demon, Gargoyle. Okay. We are gonna avoid a lot of the Gargoyles here moving forward. I got it. I gave you guys a good demonstration, but I really would prefer not to fight them. I did fight them with Strength on, but again, I would recommend kind of holding your burst for the Gargoyle so that you can kill them as soon as you can. Demon again, Ked. I'm gonna sneak behind here. Might pull the Ked though thereafter. I'm kind of waiting for my HP to come back as well. Ah, first instance of a Knight. Knight is proximity. It will do basically single and double attacks. It does do a decent amount of damage. There's that double attack right there. If you leave it alive long enough, it will get into an attack bonus. The attack bonus is a little concerning because it'll follow in with its double attack thereafter. I believe this attack bonus might be 20 seconds into its pull. So we'll keep it alive long enough so you can see that attack bonus. It'll have a big like buff animation and an attack bonus. I think it'll be after the third one coming up soon. Looks like it's roughly 30 seconds. Definitely can look at the timer for this one in terms of how long it takes. This feels like 30 seconds for sure. Fourth skulls. There it is. 7-second attack bonus there. Easily kiteable. If you kind of run away from it, you'll probably let it drop its attack bonus by the time it even catches up to you. This is the Manticore. It'll gap close, followed by a attack bonus. It'll do a Ripper Claw, which is a non-telegraph swipe AoE in front of it, so you just get behind it. It'll also follow in eventually with a Fireball, which is an AoE on you. Interruptible, but... I think it's interruptible, but let it cast, because it'll commit to the cast if it does the Fireball. So don't interrupt the Fireball, because you can actually get away from it. If you interrupt it, it'll come at you, because it doesn't have anything to do. Alright, so those are the enemies up until this point. Does it dash when it comes out of Witching? I believe this version should dash when it... Yes, it will. Actually, something in Heaven on High that's worth noting. If you... This should probably apply to this Manticore as well. If the Manticore aggroes you and does the attack bonus, and then you Witching, when it comes out of the Witching, it'll have the attack... it'll actually lose the attack bonus and give itself an attack down debuff on itself, so it does a lot less damage. But in the attack debuff, it doesn't actually open up with the gap closer because it has a different condition on it. Once that debuff actually wears off, it'll then be like it pulls, and then it'll gap close, and then it'll do its attack bonus. So it's a little bit wonky in terms of that kind of sequence of events. But if you were to Witching it before the pull, then it'll open with the gap closer. Okay, arm is now capped, and we're about to look into getting armor capped soon too. Alright, we're gonna go. I'm gonna ignore that chest because I may have to fight for something for that chest. I'm really hoping to get this Gargoyle, which I do, unfortunately. Gonna try to go with this without the sustaining potion here. Look at the damage coming in. Gonna pop a potion here. Okay, good. I was a little bit late on that one too. All the landmines do exactly the same no matter what deep dungeon, so the rules will not be different. So Palace landmines won't kill you here. Pretty nice on the debuffs so far. Intuition. Let's see. Ked. Boots. First instance of the Bhoot, we'll pull the Bhoot. The Bhoot is a sound aggro here, as demonstrated here. What it will do is that it'll do Paralyze 3, but actually we'll deal with the Manticore first, before we deal with the Bhoot. So for the sake of demonstration here as well, we'll leave this thing alive long enough for 30 seconds, and you'll see once the attack bonus gets down to 0, it'll then give itself a debuff after that. Now, in this version of the Manticore, you're probably not getting to this attack bonus, and it's not that big of a deal. It's a lot bigger of a deal in, like, Heaven on High, but it's still the mechanic that it does have. So once it boosts the thing, you'll see, boom, attack down. And it's really nice. It actually is quite a lot of damage mitigation from that. Pulling the Knight here because it is in the way of the exit. Gonna check the chest, then do the Bhoot that we were discussing earlier. Keeping the HP a little bit high for the Knight. The Demon is then looking this way, so I'm gonna avoid it for now. Let's pull the Bhoot. Again, it's gonna open with a Paralyze... Oh, it's gonna eventually use a Paralyze 3. The Paralyze 3 can be interrupted, which is really nice. The Paralyze in itself, though, it's like a... I think it's a much shorter Paralyze, unlike the ones that you have before. It'll be a 15-second Paralyze. Pretty potent, but not terrifying. We let it through on purpose here. Oh, it's actually a 12-second Paralyze. We let it through on purpose, but it usually is a pretty potent one. So it does suck, but again, you can stop it with your interrupt. Okay, let's proceed to the next room. More Knights. I do have a Witching if I want to play it. A lot of Knights here. I'm gonna go to the next room over here. I may take an aggro, but that's perfectly fine. I feel like that Knight was coming in close. Nope. Gargoyle. And a Demon. Gonna pull the Gargoyle. Also gonna Witching here, so we're gonna take advantage of the Witching a little bit. Actually, I didn't do it as well as I should have. I wanted to clip the Knight over here, but I was a little too far away from it, but that's perfectly fine. One thing I was gonna do is I was gonna Witching 2 enemies, and then within the Witching, kind of pull everything that's Witching so we can just get a couple easier kills here. But I didn't execute it very well, but that's okay. That is a steal coming back, very good. Walking through this room without any danger, because we killed the thing that was in my path here. Checking this room, that is a silver, which I would like to go for, so we're going to pull this Knight and Tactician a little bit for mitigation, because I don't quite have a lot of kiting room here. And one thing to note, a lot of this movement you see, I'm really sticking it within that hallway, because the hallways are safe, no traps. But once we enter into the next floor, I'm going to be a lot more moving, a lot more mobile, and a lot less caring of traps, etc. Because we are definitely going to be a lot more aware of specific traps that could give us a problem. And hugging the wall in the next set is a lot safer, but we'll talk about that when we get there. Waiting for myself to be above 70% here, which is good. We can pop the chest. 97, so we're basically going to be capped at 99.99 by the time we get to 150, which is really, really nice. And just to repeat this one, if you haven't seen it before, we did start at floor 1 at 59.59, and we were kind of demonstrating a little bit of a lower entry point, instead of, you know, kind of just making sure that you have 99. All my videos before have always been, hey, we started at 99.99, we had a lot of pot shirts and everything, but I wanted to showcase that you don't have to be that high, at least when you're progging, you know? If you're gonna be someone that'll be just like me, where I gotta run the content, you know, like 10 plus times just to get used to it, you know, I gotta actually get myself in there, then man, start at a lower arm and armor, because as you're climbing up, assuming you're getting silver chests, you will get that arm and armor leveled up along the way, and you're gonna prog the content at the same time. It's a really good idea to do that. Secondary to that, it's not a terrible idea if you are farming for your glamour weapons and the Kino weapons, you know? So if you're going through multiple runs, this is an example of like, okay, we started at least 59.59, so maybe you can start another attempt at a lower arm and armor, take some grips with you, and then get it back up by the time you're at the harder things. So you can be doing 3 birds with 1 stone, right? Progging, grips, and and leveling that arm and armor all while doing that all at once. So something to think about. Auto heal disable, which means I probably have to use some potions here. We do have 132 potions at the moment, just to make that a note. I know when I was watching and observing other people go for their clear, you know, some of the highlights was, hey, what is my potion like? Do I have enough sustaining potions for the run? Now, Machinist is capable of clearing all the way to 200 without using any sustaining potions on the floors. You have to use them on the bosses, mind you, but on the floors, we were able to get through all the way to 200 without using them. Now, we are going to go through quite the middle ground, you know, not to be too like, you know, leveling or bringing up that skill level that you can get away without using any at all. But we're definitely going to try to mitigate the use of it and try to explain how we do that with all the kiting that we utilize. Here, we're going to be doing a Rage, however, we do have the Wraith, so let me pull the Wraith first before we do the Rage. The Wraith is going to be no different than the ones you've encountered up until this point. It's going to do an AoE Scream, which is a gigantic AoE, point blank. It can be interrupted, and that's all it's going to do. So we interrupt the Scream, no problem here. I'm going to pop into the Rage in a little bit. Gonna pop a sustaining potion here for the Rage. I didn't Fortune. It's okay, we're just gonna do this, it's fine. I forgot the Fortune, but it's perfectly fine. We'll try to get to the other room. Ideally, I would have wanted a Fortune here, so that we can get a lot of kills, maybe a lot of chests in here. But the Poms are really good. I also forgot to pick up the Witching from the previous floor that I used. Something that sometimes that may happen. Your mind just kind of is focused on other things. But that's perfectly fine. We'll make up that Witching at some point. Mistakes happen, but, you know, it is what it is. This is the benefit of you checking chests and so on and so forth. At some point, you'll probably make it up. I mean, sometimes you may go into dry spells, but you don't want to be scared of these chests. Even though mimics show up, that's part of the challenge, you know? So your problem, if it's mimics, isn't to avoid them, it's to figure out how to deal with them. That's the best way that you're going to do it. And I'll definitely hold true that I would rather die to a mimic, lose a run to a mimic, than basically have a run die out because I just didn't open chests, you know? I mean, you're not going to proceed on the run if you're not getting power-ups up to a certain point. So you just gotta figure out a way around those mimics. There's the Witching back, never punished. It's okay, never punished, right? Purity, don't need that. So is Machinist's whole advantage is that it can DPS and kite? Yes. Interrupt as well, but of course when you're comparing it to tanks, tanks can do the same thing. But comparing it to tanks, two very different playstyles, right? Tank's advantage is that you're durable, you can do AoE pulls and it's not really going to kill you. Some other plays are going to be kind of fun, you know, landmines, explosions, so on and so forth. But Machinist's definite big advantage, it's the fact that you're kiting, and you're mitigating by kiting, right? If you're not taking damage running away, you're mitigating damage. And it definitely will do far superior damage than a tank will do. I love checking chests in 181 to 190 because I'd rather fight a mimic than most of those monsters anyway. Yup, exactly. And we'll definitely be going over that once we get up there. Oh look, a Fortune that I was supposed to use on the previous floor. Alright, first instance of Hellhound. Hellhound is kind of your standard double attacking enemy. No telegraphs, it'll just do some double attacks, it'll hit you kind of twice occasionally. Not too bad with a pull, especially when you're kiting. That's all it does, Ravenous Bite. We have the fresh strength on, so we're doing quite the work here. Working the spawn room here for kiting. So if you notice that I'm always kind of, in this instance, I'm going back to the spawn room because I know I don't have to worry about traps in this location. So we just pull it back, we're avoiding that damage, like we're not even taking a hit from this Wraith over here. And that's where Machinist comes into play. That's where the Fizz ranges, really in general, come into play, is that kind of play style. And again, as we're kind of showcasing Machinist and everything, look, this is what this job offers, so you can decide for yourself, is this the type of job I like to play or not? And it may not be. Understand that. It may not be the type that you like, and that's perfectly fine. There are other options available. Can you roll wall traps before 151 plus? So, it is possible to do so, but basically, the way the traps work is that they do spawn in very set locations, and very predictable locations. Now, it is possible to remember all of them or to study all of them, but for all intents and purposes, if you're just kind of going through, there are going to be some wall traps that you may hit with. That honestly, I'm not too well versed on exactly where they could be and what room they could be. I know the donut room is going to be one that I'm going to be very concerned about, but the way that I play through the cave floors in particular is I play a cautious pull. Is that if I'm going to travel from point A to point B from room to room, I am either going to make sure I'm not going to take something with me, or that I'm prepared to hit a trap if I were to trigger one. So in this instance, I'm safe from an aggro, I get into this hallway, and boom, let me do a pull, let me fight in this hallway. And that's basically the process that I repeat on the cave floors in particular. That's why I produce a lot of consistency, because you do not want a situation where you aggro something and then hit a luring trap. Now you're dealing with 4 enemies on top of you instead of 3. You don't want to hit a toad trap when you just aggroed a knight when you're not rolling a sustaining potion. Then you're just gonna die, right? I mean, one thing I do recommend, if you're someone that's sitting on quite a lot of sustaining potions, and it's something I do on a lot of other jobs that isn't Machinist, is if I actually go, like, okay, let's say I'm going to travel from this side to this side, I will actually pop a sustaining potion as I travel through here. Or if I'm trying to get to a chest that's somewhere around the room, I will pop a sustaining potion to get the chest and go out. Because here you're preventing against a toad trap that you could hit, or a luring trap that you could hit. And it just increases your chances of survival. Again, you don't have to do it, but there are benefits to doing so. Of course, the negatives that you're using a sustaining potion, especially if you're low count, you're not going to see me do that very often, simply because... actually, I know what that chest is, Serenity. Simply because we're trying to mitigate our sustaining potions, which is kind of taking that perspective, but it's something to consider if you do have a lot of them. Okay, bronze chest here. Could be the all-important posture that we would like to have. Which it is! Add more to the number. First instance of the persona. Personas are proximity. They are very similar. They're basically boots, except they're proximity. The boots are sound, these are proximity. They will do Paralyze 3, just like the boots. No other difference. These are also considered undead, like the boots, which I never actually mentioned. If you were to have an extra resolution, they do work on the knights, they do work on the persona, they do work on the ghosts. You can get that extra damage on them if you were to have that extra resolution. But more likely than not, you're probably sitting at 2 or less resolution because you just used one on the 140 boss. More than likely. Maybe you did it. Maybe you're like, hey, I didn't want to use a resolution, I want to do it the real way. Okay, fair. You probably have the resolution, so if you have an extra one, you could use it here. Make use of the hallways and the flag room in the caves. 100%. Yep. Like, another way to explain this is that if I'm in the cave floors, or any floor that isn't 151+, I'm basically assuming I'm going to hit a trap. Right? As I go through the room, it's like I'm bracing myself. Okay, is today the day I hit a trap? That's how my mind thinks, so I'm always going to try to prevent that from happening. In 151, it's reversed. It's more like I should not hit a trap because I should be careful with that. So it's a different form of thinking. Succubus here, it is sight aggro. They do shoot at you from afar, like you just saw here. Ideally, you do want to handle them because of that, because it could get, with how small the hallways are, it could be a pretty problematic if you're dealing with an enemy, then you have to deal with the AoE. This thing does no different than the previous version. It'll start with Dark Mist, followed by Voidfire 3. The only difference is that Voidfire is way bigger. You already saw the size of it, so when it casts it, I think it's Voidfire 4 actually. Either way. When it casts it, it will be a sizable AoE, unlike its previous iteration 100 floors ago. It is interruptible, so if you want to interrupt it and maybe not run away from the AoE, be my guest. Another form of a Succubus here, so we'll pull it just to get it out of the way. And there's a Persona on the wall, very good. Do I recommend a double run, or in other words, a double file? You hear a lot of people do this because they feel a bit more safe and then get back to one. Do I recommend it? I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I think there is a lot of benefit to running a double file. What a double file is, for the sake of definition's sake, is that you take your 2 file slots and you level them up simultaneously. So you get like a file to like 120, you get the other file to 120, and you kind of go 10 by 10 as you climb up. It takes double the work, so it's double the time, you know, so that's something that is a downside of it, but man, is it really comforting when you spend like 12 hours on a file. Let's say you get to Behemoth, you fail Behemoth, but then right away you can go right back in. You can like try out the things that you thought you could fix. You know, maybe you learned something crucial on that initial climb up. That's the benefit of having that double file. But again, the downside is that it does take double the time. So to do another double file is going to take twice the amount of time. But hey, look, either way, it's just distributing the time differently. You either go through, you know, 1 shot up for 12 hours and back, or you do 24 hours and you have 2 shots back to back. Whatever you prefer. My Necromancer attempt, when I got Necromancer, I did do a double file. I won on the first file though, so that was very kind of comforting that I didn't have to go into the second file. But I did win on my first file. Double file is nice, says Private Penny, if you don't have full Aetherful, because it gives you more time to get to 99 before it becomes super necessary. 100% true. And as we today did a 59-59 start, it even gives you a higher chance to be higher with that double file, so that's 100% true. And maybe it could afford you for starting even at a lower armor if you want to. But I'm kind of going from kind of the 1-run perspective at the moment. You know, we do 1 run, climb it up, lose the run, go back in kind of thing. I would say it's probably a little bit more I would say maybe a 60-40 in favor of a single file, from like talking with people and seeing how people do their thing. You definitely do see people do the double files, but I definitely wouldn't say it's uncommon. Subject to the double file asks Gims, the worst file first or the better one, assuming better not equal? I'm kind of the person that likes to go with the worst file first. I think it's debatable. You know, I think it will come down to what you're feeling like. I do feel like I'd rather go with the underdog, because if I were to actually do really good with the underdog, then presumably I will do even better because my second file is better than that, you know? RNG is still a factor, of course. That's it. That's the way I would look at it. Okay, personas. This one is blocking a chest and a room. I did safety here, so we're okay. Gonna kill it before the paralyze. Alright, first instance of dragons. They are undead dragons. What does that mean? They can die to resolution. Also, first instance of the Keeper. These guys will just do double attacks as well. This actually has a party mechanic, but it only does the mechanic if you have more than one person. So in the solo instance, it's only going to do that double attack that it did just there. These guys are a little more annoying than the other ones. They will do a little bit more damage than some of the other ones in terms of their double attack. Dragon will be beefier. Rule of thumb in Palace of the Dead, the bigger the enemy, the more HP they have. Evil Eye comes out, it's a gaze, just turn away from it. You can also get behind. It'll then follow up with a Conal. It is designed to be a wombo combo. The first move, Evil Eye, will terror you, and then the Conal comes out to kind of finish you off. And the terror, the Evil Eye, does do damage as well, so it is kind of meant to like wipe you out in that sense. So just give it some respect, and turn away from the thing, or get behind it, and then finish it off. And notice that we are mitigating our sustaining potions here. We're doing a lot of kiting, especially because we safetied this room. So it is very, very good to do that. Now, the Gravekeeper, didn't say, it is sound, so you can get away from the Gravekeeper by just walking. The Onyx Dragons, these guys are sight. Although their version later, which you'll deal with, I may have the potion here, by the way. The version later in 191 Plus are going to be proximity. So the ones here are nice and easy because they are sight, and you can kind of just get away from them. I popped the potion here because we have 2 attacking enemies on us. Gonna check that silver chest next. Alright, one sustaining potion was good enough here. I'm going to be making a little bit of an extra deal in terms of how many sustaining potions we actually utilize, just because we are trying to be a little conservative. I think I have to pull this now. I'm going to pull the Persona because it kind of came in my direction to get that silver chest. We'll do a little bit of strat here. I'm going to bring it to the silver chest. It's something that you can do if you're confident. Get yourself above 70% HP, pop the chest, and it could kill the enemy if it explodes. But you have to make sure that you are above 70%, otherwise it will kill you on top of the enemy. Definitely an advanced strategy. If you're someone that can at least, you know, get into the habit of doing it, then hey, by all means, go for it. But certainly something I would suggest to have practice with, especially when you go into higher floors, when enemies are doing more than 30% of your HP per hit, it could be very dangerous to try to do an exploding chest to kill an enemy and to get like a little bit of a quick kill, if you will. Alright, so we've pulled everything up until now. Our time is very good. I mean, we spent a lot of time doing some extra explanation, and we still have a really good amount of time on this run. One debuff. HP down, no problem. Steal, I'll pop that right away. Again, we're going to demonstrate the sound aggro of the Keeper. As you can see, we're walking, no problem. He doesn't care, he doesn't see me. Got the mask on. Gonna pull it though. The Gravekeeper can be heavied, as we were mentioning at the top of this floor, about having your heavy. Really good to have, especially with kiting, especially when you need it. In this instance, it's kind of a little bit less necessary because I do have that steal on. But we'll be using a lot of that moving forward. I'll probably be mentioning that at the top of each floor set to make sure that you have that ability there, and that you're using that ability. One of the key reasons that we will survive, and one of the key reasons that we'll get through, with very little steal usage and potion usage. Now, speaking of potions, bringing it up, you know, when I play, like, Mega Safe in here, and I play, like just for clear, and maybe a job that isn't necessarily Machinist, or maybe my first time up in Machinist, I will pop a potion almost every pull. It will use a lot of potions, but hey, if you're someone that is sitting on a lot of potshers, you know, hey, nothing wrong with playing safe like that. But, our demonstration here is working with less potions and to showcase, you know, hey, I don't have that much, so how can I get through? Like, should I get this amount? Well, you can get through. Just a little bit more gameplay is necessary, but you can totally get through. Rooms with dragons sometimes looks like chest rooms. They do. Yeah, they're so big. And a little intimidating because they're taking so much space. Yep. Okay. Chest sight, very good. Definitely get this chest going in. Oh, that's not what I wanted. I targeted the wrong thing. So I pulled the thing before I hit the chest. I have that Serenity, but I'll leave it alone for now. Double attacking Hellhound. Okay, that's the site I just used. Let's pull the... No, actually, wait. Something just spawned? Oh no, it was a Hellhound. Is a Hellhound dying? I thought something just spawned. Where's the exit? Exit is here. Okay, let's do the Succubus. Because it is near the exit, so it could give me a little bit of a problem. Not to mention it will shoot AoEs at me. Little overkill on the Wildfire, but that's okay. There's that Void Fire combination. And we're out into 49. No problem here. Looking good. How many potions would you need if you want to pop them regularly? I would agree with 300. Yep, totally agree with 300. And that's a 300 start at floor 1, you know? If you're starting up at like, let's say 151 or like 141, you probably want a little bit higher than that. But 300 minimum at floor 1, if you're gonna pop them cautiously, is definitely a good start, because you're gonna pick up at least 2 guaranteed, and pick up more potches along the way as well. Here we want to be a little bit careful because of the 2 Gravekeepers, but it's okay, we will walk past them. But if anything, I'm hoping to kind of demonstrate here that, you know, with a mix of like the gameplay and what Machinist can do, that you don't have to have as much as you're starting off. At least we're showcasing what Machinist is capable of, and hopefully, you know, you can duplicate this process as best. There's a lot of patrol that you can try to duplicate the movement and the mitigation. You could also see what kind of damage that we're taking in. I mean, steel also does help, right? If you pick up any free steals, that is a lot of mitigation, so I can use a lot less potions. Onyx Dragon, I'll pull the dragon here, and I'll get the chest later, because it's basically kind of blocking me from the next turn. Okay, gonna get the chest here. I do have to remember that we have no items. And this is where Machinist will be really strong, and Machinist will have the ability to get through, is because because of your kiting, you can actually get away with a couple no item floors, if not all of them, really. Assuming there's nothing else in the floor set that is going to cause you issues. It can be safely assumed that using an Affluence would increase the chance of a treasure room, monster house, since it obviously creates more chests. Fair, you can use that analysis. Do we know if we have any drawn, or have we drawn theories that alterations and flights? Flights, yes. Alterations, no. I believe the testing that has involved has shown that flights do at the equal amount that an Affluence does, which I believe is a 3%-ish chance. Like 3 to 6% chance for that happening. Alterations do not affect the possibility of a treasure room from what it looks like with analysis. Actually, I put myself in a tough spot here. Okay, okay. A little bit of the bad combo here with the Gravekeeper, having to try to walk away from them, and then the Succubus doing the AoE. It's actually a problem that you'll encounter 191 plus with Wraiths and Gravekeepers. So you want to kind of be careful of that combo, because the AoEs are so big, you will not be able to walk out of it if you're walking and RP walking to avoid the aggro. So it's like, it's kind of mean, to be honest, but... Another Gravekeeper here. I'll move. Exit is open, but I still want to be careful because we don't have items, and if we hit a luring trap, that could be a little treacherous. Yeah, I'm not going to go for the chest, because honestly, the chances of me picking up something useful is pretty low. I'm going to wait a bit for this Succubus, so what it's going to do is it's going to shoot me first and then move. Usually when enemies that have that ability, they will shoot first then move. So you have to wait for that to happen. It's actually a nice indicator of when they're about to move too, like a really big tell that that's going to occur. That dragon is blocking me right now, so I will pull the dragon. Evil Eye first, we're going to turn around. Actually, we can showcase... I'm not going to get there. I was going to try to get behind the dragon, but I didn't get there in time. You got to be careful with the Gravekeeper coming in. We could get into a bad combination where the Succubus shoots me and the Gravekeeper comes close, but we should be okay here. Good timing there. Alright. I will not open the chest, because the only thing I could possibly get is a resolution. Well, nah, we'll open it. I have 10 seconds of steel on. Mimic? That would have been nice. Alright, into the boss. The good old 150 boss. Not the same as the 50 boss that you fought earlier, Edda. We finished off Edda, so they had to replace Edda with Tisiphone. Now this boss has a lot of mechanics going through it. We'll explain it as we go along. But what's really nice about Machinist is that you ignore, like, everything. Literally, you ignore everything, and all you do is run around in a circle and hit GCDs. That's the fight. We are going to go on this fight without Steel on. We'll only use the Strength. And you'll see it's not going to be really treacherous at all because of how much casting it will do. It does have a complicated, like, a lot of its rotation in terms of this fight, but again, Machinist will trivialize a lot of this. So let's pop the Strength here. Open with a Sprint. We'll be using our Sustaining Potion very sparingly here. First move is going to be Void Fire as they do the opener. That's the beginning of its rotation. Just stay away from it, no big deal. It's then going to cast an enemy on the outside, and then it's going to do Dark Mist. Dark Mist is an AoE terror, and then that does the Lion AoE. Just kind of stay away from it, no biggie there. If you're in a party, the Gargoyles will be per person, so because you're solo, you're only dealing with one. Now it spawns ads. Now this is the big thing with Machinist. Unlike a couple other jobs, Machinist can completely ignore these ads. You do not have to do damage to them, you do not have to kill them. You just stay away from them the entire time here. And you'll see the reason why later, once we get to later the rotation. This next phase, it's going to do 3 AoEs. It's going to do Void Fire, followed by the demon doing one on you, and then she'll chase you down to do a Dark Mist within range, or in this case, she's not really going to get there. Okay, now the bigger problem here, if you will, especially when you're running without Steel, is that she'll spawn a Succubus ad here. Now, a lot of things about this ad. You could do damage on this ad, however, think of this ad as just like an HP sponge, if you will. I will guess that I think it has 12,000 HP, and whatever HP it has, it will then absorb that amount of HP and heal itself with it. Now, it doesn't matter if you put the damage on the boss. Oh, sorry, 28,000, my apologies, I was just a little bit off. So it'll heal for 28,000 when it does that. Blood Mist coming, Blood Rain coming out, this is where you're gonna see those zombies drop, making sure your healing is up. And those zombies will die from Blood Rain. And it doesn't affect any damage multiplier with the boss, so if I kill the ads, that Blood Rain will still do the same amount of damage. Okay, now back to that Succubus ad. That Succubus ad, it doesn't matter if you do damage to the boss or the Succubus ad. So let's say I do all of my damage on the ad and bring it down to, let's say, 14,000 HP. Okay, well now it's gonna heal for 14,000 HP. Like, it's not some like weird modifier or something like that. It'll just do a 1-to-1 ratio. So, you know, for other jobs, AoEing is not a bad idea. Maybe clipping it with like Ricochet here and there is not a bad idea. But you're a DPS, you're Machinist, it doesn't really matter. And if it suits you better to do damage on the boss, be my guest. I think on this next rotation, on this next rotation, I'll do all my damage on the ad just for demonstration purposes. If you saw the number, it said 28,998. So we'll do all our damage on the ad coming up, and then proceed from there. If you're running this without the Steel, definitely recommend to pop a Sustaining Potion when the ad comes in, because you'll start taking kind of double damage. You'll need another Sustaining Potion for Blood Rain, or at least make sure your HP is above 50%, because it will do almost close to 70% damage on that one. So here we're getting that ad down potentially. We might actually kill it. Maybe? Okay, actually that's low enough. I want to demonstrate the ad getting sucked in. So look at the HP value that it'll get from this. So now it heals for 3,393, because we dipped that much damage away from the ad. So, again, it doesn't matter where you put the damage at the end of the day. Okay, making sure I get a heal here. I'm going to Tactician. We're going to pop a max potion here. Just for the heal. Boom, good. Alright. This boss might die on this cycle, but it is rinse and repeat, and for Machinist anyway, this boss is not too bad at all. Again, no Steel here, only Strength. You can probably actually handle this boss without Strength 2 if you really want to kind of be very conservative with your Pomanders. It will cost you a little bit more Sustaining Potions because the fight will be longer, so whatever you want to balance there. You can also open with the Lust. If you actually Lust on this boss, you can kill it easily. Not easily, but you can kill it within 2 cycles. So this is like cycle number 3, but you can kill it in 2 cycles with Strength and Lust. We've done that with like our speed runs, etc. on this job. So if you want to end the fight, sooner, hey, there you go, be my guest. And you're not really using Lust too much on the floors anyway, especially as a DPS. So you have options here. But not a bad boss at all. Zombies, don't care about them. Just doing damage and running around in a circle. Typical Machinist shenanigans. And that is 150. And we are just about capped on arm and armor, so that is really nice. 150. So if you were to kill the ad that heals her, then she just doesn't heal. But again, you gotta think of it like everything as an overall HP value. You know, it has 28,000 as 29,000 HP. So if you're doing 29,000 HP on the ad, okay, then it won't take that heal. If you do 29,000 HP on the boss, then it just takes it from the ad, right? So it doesn't matter where you put that damage. And again, the only time it matters, the only time you could do something with it is if you're actually getting a damage gain on 2 targets, which applies to some jobs, but for Machinists, who cares? So can Machinists do 160, 170 without steel? No. Oh, wait. Yes and no. Sorry. I did actually do this on a previous run because we were limit testing. And 160 was a no-go, not possible. I only got it down to like 70% before I hit the dirt. 170, thanks to our buddy Mr. Omniros, who was first to tell me that he tried it and he was okay. You can do 170 without steel. I don't think I'd recommend it for a first-time runner, but it is possible. And I at least have the video of it, so I can actually use that for video. I'll use that as an example. Is the 151 floors where you start getting conservative with Poms? I would say it's an interesting question. I think the perspective more so, Dank, is more that you want to try to not use so much, which I guess does mean conservative. But really, like, because you're trying to get through and get to those higher floors, which would require you to use more Poms, right? Because things are going to be harder. You do want to try to get away with things without using anything as best as you can. Now, of course, the situation will kind of call for it depending on what happens. 151 is notorious for having really bad debuffs. So, you know, you could be forced into a situation where you just have to use things. But yeah, you do want to be a little bit conservative because you would like to use those things later as opposed to earlier. And you want to get used to things without Poms earlier, you know, so you can save them for later. How long have I played Deep Dungeon? Whenever Palace of the Dead came out. Let's see. Palace of the Dead to 3.35. FF14 3.35 patch. Date is July 18, 2016. So, July 18, 2016 to present day days. 2,939 days we've been in Deep Dungeon. 8 years in the content. Now, not 8 years streaming it. It's been like 5, like maybe 5, 6 years streaming it. But yeah, ever since the beginning I've been doing this.